She never meant to sit next to her. It was just an Amtrak train, just a window seat, just a stranger with cherry red nails sliding into the spot beside her like she had always planned to be there. And maybe she had. That's the thing about Blair Ashton. By the time you realized what was happening, the planning had already been done for a long time. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. First, you need to know who Grace Calloway was before any of this. Grace grew up in Savannah, Georgia. Not wealthy, not connected, not handed a single thing. She learned tennis by hitting balls against a cracked concrete wall behind her apartment every morning until her shoulder gave out, and then again the next morning. By 28, she was a top 5 ranked professional on the women's circuit. Her face was on billboards. Her name trended after every Grand Slam. She had built everything she owned from nothing, with her own hands, in full public view. She was also, right now, quietly drowning. Her estranged husband, Tyler Calloway, former sports agent, practiced charm, the kind of man who becomes a different person the moment the door is closed, had been refusing to sign their divorce papers for 16 months. Not from heartbreak, from calculation. Grace was becoming worth real money, and Tyler had always been better at chasing other people's success than building his own. He had threatened to go to the tabloids. He had stalled every legal motion available to him. He had made the simple act of ending a marriage feel like a siege. She was also, quietly, privately, in love with Connor Morton, an architect, the kind and soft-spoken son of Illinois Senator Patricia Morton. And Tyler was using that, too, threatening to reframe their entire divorce as her infidelity if she pushed too hard. So when Grace boarded the Amtrak Northeast Regional 4:15 p.m. out of Washington, D.C. Union Station, she was carrying all of that like a stone in her chest. Car 7, window seat, headphones in, eyes closed. She was not looking for conversation, but Blair Ashton sat down anyway. Blair was 32, sharp-jawed, draped in a charcoal Armani blazer with gold hardware. Her nails were the color of dried Merlot. She had the energy of someone who had never once in their life wondered if they were being too much, and had structured their entire personality around making that feel like your problem, not theirs. She recognized Grace before Grace had even fully registered her, not with fan energy, with the cool, assessing eye of someone who had already done their research before sitting down. Grace Calloway, you beat Fernandez at the U.S. Open last September. I watched from the Arthur Ashe Stadium corporate box. That backhand down the line in the 4th set, one of the cleanest shots I've seen live. Grace pulled one earbud out and said thank you in the polite, measured tone she used with strangers who wanted more than she had the energy to give. But Blair wasn't asking for a story to take home. She was running a play. And Grace, tired and distracted and expecting nothing from this 2-hour ride, didn't see it being assembled piece by piece right in front of her. They talked the whole way, or rather, Blair talked, and Grace listened, because there is a specific kind of person who speaks with such total, unhurried confidence that your brain starts treating them as safe before you've consciously decided they are. Blair Ashton was exactly that kind of person. She had weaponized warmth, and she had been doing it for years. She told Grace about her father, Richard Ashton, Dallas real estate developer, office towers across Houston, Phoenix, Atlanta, and the quiet 3-year campaign he had been running to have his own daughter declared legally incompetent so he could seize her trust fund. Her mother, Diane, floated through everything on medication and deliberate ignorance. Blair had been living inside this closing trap for years, watching it tighten. He doesn't want me dead. He wants me erased, controlled. He doesn't like that I exist without needing his permission. Grace felt the first chill then. Not fear exactly, more like the feeling of watching a shadow move when nothing in the room has moved. But she stayed. She kept listening. And that, as it turned out, was everything. Blair turned slightly and said something that made the entire conversation shift into a different register entirely. "Tell me about Tyler." Grace went completely still. Blair already knew. The divorce, Connor Morton, the tabloid threats, all of it. She had read the Chicago social pages like a textbook and memorized everything before she ever sat down in seat 7C. She laid it back to Grace with the accuracy of a surgical report. "I've been thinking," Blair said, in that same light, almost bored voice, "about the most elegant solution to problems like ours." And then she explained it, calmly, logically, the way a mathematician walks through an equation. Two strangers, no connection between them, each carrying one person who was, as Blair put it with a small smile, a liability. Blair's father, Richard, Grace's husband, Tyler. I handle yours, you handle mine. No motive, no history, no trail. Investigators look for a reason. We have none. We are strangers on a train. We are nothing to each other. And that is exactly why it works. Grace laughed, an actual disbelieving laugh. "You're out of your mind." "I'm completely serious, but take your time. Think it through." The train pulled into Penn Station beneath Midtown Manhattan. Grace grabbed her racket bag and walked away fast, heart loud, hands slightly unsteady, telling herself it was the performance of a bored, strange socialite who liked to shock people on trains. She filed it under "weird things that happen on public transport," and she closed the drawer. She did not think about Blair Ashton again. She absolutely, completely did not. 4 days later, Tyler Calloway was found strangled in the parking structure of his River North apartment building in Chicago. Tuesday evening. No witnesses, no useful security footage. The method was methodical, unhurried. The medical examiner noted, in language she rarely used in official reports, that whoever did this had been entirely calm throughout. The Chicago Police Department arrived at Grace's New York hotel room before she had even seen the news. She was mid-tournament at the U.S. Open in Flushing Meadows. She had been on court 6 hours before. She had a perfect alibi. And it meant nothing, because motive doesn't need an alibi. Motive is the story. And Grace's motive was on record, in court documents, in every tabloid that had covered their divorce. She told the detectives everything. The train, Blair, the conversation, the proposal she had walked away from. She told it in precise, honest, complete detail. The detective, a woman named Reyes with the particular stillness of someone who has heard every version of every story, wrote something down, looked up, and let her go. For now. Those 2 words sat inside Grace's chest like a splinter she couldn't reach. Blair appeared outside Grace's Upper West Side apartment building on a Thursday morning, unhurried, unbothered, as though she lived in the neighborhood. "Your end of the arrangement." "There is no arrangement. I never agreed. I walked away." "You listened. 2 full hours, Union Station to Penn Station. You didn't report me. You didn't warn Tyler. You said nothing. In a federal courtroom with the right prosecutor, that silence has a name." And there it was. The thing Grace hadn't seen coming. The thing that made the trap so elegant and so terrifying. Blair had never needed her agreement. She had only needed her silence. And Grace, by walking away without reporting anything, had handed it over without even knowing she was doing it. The trap had been built from nothing. A conversation, a train ride, one woman's exhaustion. And now it was an iron cage with no visible door. Blair made her presence felt over the following weeks in the exact way that cannot be documented but cannot be ignored. Notes appeared under Grace's door, polite, friendly, nothing actionable. A photograph taken from across Riverside Drive slid under it a week later. At a tournament in Miami, Grace looked up during a changeover and found Blair 3 rows back in the stands, not watching the match, watching her. the way something watches what it already considers its own. At a Capitol Hill fundraiser hosted by Senator Morton, Blair appeared, charming aides and lobbyists, laughing in all the right moments, and across the marble foyer found Grace's eyes with a look that needed no words. Try to expose me. They already love me. They will never believe you over me. Grace Calloway had won a Grand Slam match from 2 sets down. She was not built for waiting to be saved. She went to Connor that night and told him everything. Not the edited version, not the version that protected her public image, but every single detail in order, from the train seat to the Thursday morning outside her building. He sat very still through all of it. Then he said, "Then we dismantle her." Together with Grace's longtime coach, Deborah Simmons, former FBI consultant now in athletics, but her instincts had never left, they began building the case the police couldn't build on their own. Every note documented, every appearance time-stamped, every contact logged and photographed. The problem was that Blair was too careful. She never said enough. She operated entirely in implication, gestures that meant everything in a room and nothing in a courtroom. But Blair had kept one thing she should have destroyed long ago: a gold-engraved bracelet, Grace's initials on the clasp, left behind on the train and kept by Blair as insurance, as the physical object she planned to plant near Richard Ashton's Dallas estate to manufacture evidence that Grace had been there, had been involved, had been part of it all from the beginning. Grace's name, Grace's initials, Grace's guilt, assembled from a bracelet and a silence and months of meticulous planning. Grace found out before Blair could use it. Deborah's network moved faster. The final confrontation happened at Navy Pier in Chicago on a Saturday evening in October. Blair had chosen it herself, theatrically, as she did everything, believing the weekend crowd gave her cover and noise to disappear into if things went wrong. The Centennial Wheel was lit against a black Lake Michigan sky. Children ran between food stalls. A cover band played somewhere near the water. Nobody had any idea. Blair had Grace's bracelet in her coat pocket when the Chicago PD and FBI Joint Task Force, whom Grace had fully, formally, and completely brought in 48 hours prior with every piece of evidence Deborah had assembled, closed in from 3 directions at once. Blair ran. She was fast, and for one long, terrible second, it looked like she might make it to the waterfront. She didn't. At the pier's edge, she fell into Lake Michigan. October water, black and freezing. The kind of cold that doesn't negotiate. She did not surface. They found her 3 hours later. In her coat pocket, waterlogged but perfectly readable, Grace's bracelet. The initials still clear. The evidence of everything Blair had planned, preserved in the exact water that had ended her. Grace Calloway won the Australian Open the following January. She cried on the court in Melbourne for the first time in her career. Not from joy exactly, but from the specific relief of someone who has been holding something very heavy for a long time and has finally, completely been allowed to put it down. The Chicago case was closed. Blair Ashton named as sole perpetrator. Grace cleared of all suspicion. The divorce estate settled. Connor was in the player's box when she won match point. He didn't stand, didn't cheer, just looked at her the way you look at someone you are quietly, deeply glad is still alive and still themselves. She took the Amtrak home 3 weeks later. Penn Station to Washington, D.C. Window seat, headphones in. When the seat beside her filled, a tired woman with a carry-on and a coffee, Grace nodded once, looked back out the window, and kept her headphones in the whole way. She had learned what a conversation with the wrong stranger on a train could cost. The most dangerous person in the world is not the one who threatens you or shows you the weapon. It is the one who sits down next to you, already knowing your name, and has decided, long before you ever met, that you owe them everything.